So tell me if this is you in any way, shape, or form. You're ready to start a hobby, a new skill, and as soon as you started, you realize that you are not perfect. And for some reason, you have these really, really high standards that even as a beginner, that you should be excellent. You are riddled with perfection in getting things right the first time. You are not good enough. The place is not good enough. Your hair is not good enough. The room is not good enough. The light is not good enough. People aren't good enough. Something is just not right, and you can't let it go. And this, my friends, is perfectionism. It is the disease of perfectionism. When we are not able to allow ourselves to grow, expand, experiment, be gentle towards ourselves as we learn and make mistakes and make progress. This is when we get in the way of our own excellence, when we get in the way of our own progress, we get in the way of the place that we could be, but are not even able to start because it's just not good enough. I want you to know that this is something that I think a lot of people are dealing with. But I want to kind of bring in a different kind of view that perfectionism is not something that you are just struggling with. It's something that unfortunately you had inherited or developed within your childhood. Something happened, and for some reason you weren't allowed to be a child. You weren't allowed to wonder and grow and stumble and make mistakes and get back up again and believe in yourself again. And now here we are as an adult, and you make a mistake. I'm quitting. It's not good enough. Meh, not good. I'm not like that person who's been doing this for 20 years and I've been literally doing it for 5 minutes. And the point is that it's not about how, although it may sound irrational the way it comes out. It's important to know how emotionally tied perfectionism is to our childhood. One of the most mm, enlightening things I learned about perfectionism was that how I related to perfectionism was so completely how I related to my parents. So I want you to think about your childhood. Just let it swirl in your mind for a second. Where could these roots possibly come from? What experiences did you have when it came to starting something new or continuing to do something? How did you feel as a child as you embarked on this journey? How were you received as a kid? Because the relationship that we have when it comes to perfectionism, it is irrational. It almost doesn't really make any sense, honestly. It really doesn't make any sense. And yet, it is something that really, really does take over our lives and the way we decide to show up for something new, for something that we want to experience and and get a taste of. But unfortunately, we get in the way because of this really big, big, big block, perfectionism. So I want you to know that it's not something that you did anything wrong. It is not you, but it has a lot to do with how you grew up and the relationship that you have to work and play and experiment and exploring and discovering. Were you allowed to do this as a child? What parts of you weren't embraced and honored as a child, and what has created this rigidity that now is literally debilitating you as an adult to try new beautiful things? So what we are going to do is learn to understand yourself in relation to this. And I want you to accept your feelings as they come. Do not push it away because we change our lives. We change our lives when we look at the discomfort. We change our lives when we're just like, what is this discomfort communicating to me? So, when we're dealing with the state of imperfection, which I've already touched up upon, but perfectionism really deals with the extremity of things. It's extreme. It's either you're completely bad at it, it's either you're incapable, or you're completely excellent. There's really no gray area for you. So, how do we become the people who allow ourselves the middle ground, the beautiful gray, to play, to explore, to discover, to experiment? to be without judgment and with more curiosity and with grace. Because to be honest with you, that's what we are doing. We are giving ourselves the space and the time and the freedom and the compassion and the reception that we never really had as a child. So now we get to be the people who says, you know what, I want to respond differently. I want to respond differently to myself. I want to be kinder. I want to be compassionate. I want to be more curious. I want to be less serious. I want to be less critical. But in order to even get to that place, we have to understand, where did that critical voice, that mindset really come from? Who does it originate from? Is it really you? And honestly, it's not. Your self talk is something that is carried on from your parents. And unfortunately, we internalize it. But now you have to be your own self talk, not your parents, because it's not serving you any longer. So I want us to do an exercise together. So I want you to close your eyes. I want you to close your eyes and take a deep breath. And I want you to imagine that you are about to embark on taking on a new skill, a skill that you something that you've always wanted to try as a kid, something that probably makes you feel uncomfortable in your adult self right now. And for me, that would be singing, for example. So now imagine yourself taking a class and you're excited and you're open and your teacher is great. Your teacher gives you compliments. And now it is time for you to show what you have learned. And as you show your skills, you actually don't do so greatly. And that's fine. You try again, and then you perform. And then ugh, you still don't do as well as you like. And you try once again, and oh, it just didn't happen. Now, I want you to hold. How do you respond to yourself? What are the thoughts that come to you as you perceive yourself to be failing? Who's talking to you? Is it your mom? Is it your dad? Is it a strict mentor, coach? Who told you that you are not good enough? That it's not good enough what you're doing? What are they saying? And I want you to take note of that. I want you to look at that voice. I want you to look at that person, and I want you to look at those words. And with curiosity and not judgment, is that a voice that you want to continue to have towards yourself? Probably not. And what kind of voice or does this person have? You know, what kind of reception are you receiving when you listen to a voice in your head? Is it full of patience? Is it full of kindness? Is it encouraging? Or is it impatient, irritated? Identify the tones, identify the figure, the person. Now, I want you to think of the complete opposite. Then now, yes, as a child now, not as your adult body, as your child. Think of yourself as a child and you are embarking on a new skill and you love it. The teacher is great. And you go to that person that you've always wanted to receive approval from. How would you have wanted them to respond to you? With more kindness, with more patience, more encouraging, more celebratory. And that is the kind of approach. That's the kind of approach that now you will have to want to learn to embody for every time you embark on something new, because you'll be embarking on something new as you grow and expand and as you are alive. So that was great. And now I want you to think one more time. As a child, when you did experience, embarking on a new skill, what kind of response did you receive? Were you ignored? Were you dismissed? Were you only congratulated and seen only when you achieved something? That the progress and your persistence and your consistency was completely ignored? What was the relationship that you had towards reward and being seen when you tried something new as a child? So think of three experiences and think of all the responses in which you received. And you will see that the responses that you had received as a child either fall under two categories. It's either that you were supported or you were unsupported. And a lot of my childhood as well, when it came to doing something new, it was that I was completely unsupported. And it was something that happened throughout my childhood. A lot of the things that I embarked in as a child, my parents didn't really know. My dad, especially, didn't really support out loud. So it felt kind of shameful. A lot of the things that I participated in extra curricular activities were actually a secret of mine. I played netball for I don't even know how many years I played netball for about 10 years, 11 years, and he has never said anything about it. I did swimming for about 4 years, and my dad never really responded in any way, shape, or form. I was completely ignored. I did theater once and I auditioned and I was scared shitless and I didn't think I would get in and I did. And they didn't come and watch me at all. They didn't watch me at all. Only my sister was the only person who attended out of my entire family. So there was a thing of the things that I chose for myself. I kind of got the impression that they weren't worth it. It wasn't worth being celebrated for. And that was really the theme of my childhood, and it really played out in my adulthood. Learning to be okay with loving the things that I do, even if I don't get the validation or the the response that I would have liked as a child. So that and again, just validating that my desires are okay, even if somebody else doesn't think they're okay. That was something I had to really heal and address within my adulthood. Okay. So now that you understand somewhat of your beautiful life story, you can see now that you understand the voices in your head. You understand the narrative and who it originated from. You understand what had actually happened to you and how your parents or your mentor and any caregiver really responded to you and how much that deeply wounded you. And then on top of that, you also understand what kind of reception you would like to receive, what kind of voice you would like to adopt toward yourself from now on. So I have a bit of homework. Okay, cool. So my first question to you, and I'm going to be reading them off here, is what do you feel would happen if you did something and you weren't perfect? Number two, when you experience feelings of stuckness, criticalness, who is speaking to you? And most importantly, is it true? Dig deep. Number three, what beliefs does your inner child feel about doing something out of joy? Does it feel frivolous? Does it feel like a waste of time when you do something that you want to do instead of something that you have to do? Do you have to receive something at the end of it? Does money have to be at the end of it for it to be good enough, to be worth your time? What does your inner child believe is actually good enough? What standards do you have about what is good enough? What ways can you set up gentle goals towards something that you actually want to try? How can you be that kind, patient, encouraging parent to yourself? Number five, what views did your family have towards excellence and creativity? Were they able to coexist? Do you want to uphold these beliefs anymore? Does it make sense for you to do so? And six, come up with affirmations to console and encourage yourself as you navigate through this exercise towards healing this perfectionism wound. An example can be, I'm allowed to create without judgment. It's safe for me to try. And you can come up with anything because no one knows what you need more than you do. It's just about paying attention to ourselves with what you need. For me, it was so, so important. An affirmation that I created for myself was that it doesn't matter whether you fail, it doesn't matter whether you're good at something or not, I love you regardless. My parents were completely outcome related, so everything had a result and it had to be good. It had to be A's, it had to be excellent in order for me to even feel like they loved me in that moment. So for me, an affirmation that I needed as a child was that it doesn't matter whether you fail or excel, whether you excel or fail, I love you regardless. And that affirmation has healed me so much. Just being me is enough. Just me showing up is enough. Me being consistent is enough. And that is already an accomplishment in itself. That's what I needed as a child. And at times when I feel like I'm about to get in my own way, I kind of remind myself that it is about the progress. It's about the progress, it's about the process instead of the outcome. Okay, my friends. So, how do you know that you are making progress with this wound, with this wound in your life, with your perfectionism wound? The goal of perfectionism when it comes to healing it is learning to love the process, is learning to value the progress that you make versus the outcome. Look how far you have come. Look at all the things that you have done and overcome and become because of you, because you were so consistent and you stayed. You stayed in the fight. And that is how you know that you are healing your perfectionism wound. You also get to understand the relationship of what perfectionism means to you. Because when you understand the logic behind it, it doesn't have any power over you anymore. So when I find myself saying, oh, I need to be perfect, I come back to myself and being like, progress, progress matter. My joy matters. My growth matters more than without we getting something immediately or not. And this takes time and you have to be patient with yourself, but it's so worth it if you end up being more kinder to yourself and more loving to yourself. So I want to thank you so much for being here. Please share your stories on how perfectionism has stopped you, how much it has stolen away from you, and also the relate what relationship to perfectionism have you just uncovered. Please share your story. I would love to hear from you. I want to thank you for sharing your time and your energy and attention with me. And I will see you on the next one. Bye.